Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my presentation. Although this is an international conference with speakers from several countries and even continents, it seems that I am the only one whose mother tongue is not English. I have no British background at all, and I had to acquire my English the hard way through schoolwork. I therefore ask you to forgive me in advance if I do not get all my grammar and pronunciations correct, and I hope your ears needn't suffer too badly. As you can see, my conference talk is about German immigration and, more specifically, about the immigration of German pork butchers to the industrial areas of Great Britain in the 19th century. Let me first explain what led me to do the research on German pork butchers in Great Britain. It all began about 20 years ago when I was researching the history of craftsmanship in the part of Germany where I live. When doing research in the church registers and local archives, I realized that during the second half of the 19th century, a large number of young men and women emigrated to Britain. At that time, immigration numbers reached their peak. It was an everyday occurrence for people, even for people from small villages, to leave their home country in search of better economic conditions. The mainstream of immigration was across the Atlantic to North America. It was therefore quite surprising that there were so many who chose to make their futures in England. What was even more astonishing was that the majority of the men became pork butchers by trade, while the women were engaged as their domestic servants. My interest in this special group of migrants was further piqued when, out of nowhere, one day, two men knocked at my door and said in English, "Karl-Heinz, I think we are relatives." They came from Ireland, and their name was Bauer. Although I knew that my grandmother's maiden name was Bauer, I had never heard anything about relatives from Ireland. I asked them in and became soon aware, with the help of my family tree, that the two men, father and son, were right. The great-grandfather of the younger one and my great-grandfather were indeed brothers. Later, I had a look in my grandmother's photo album and found a photo which shows her cousins in front of their butcher shop in Mullingar in Ireland. I am sure you can now see how personal and enjoyable research in this subject matter has become for me. By going into the archives and using other sources, I have, during the last few years, managed to compile a database containing information on more than 700 names of German origin who were employed in the butcher business in Great Britain and in Ireland. But now to the specific result of my research. As already mentioned, most of the 19th century immigrants who left the lands that today form the Federal Republic of Germany considered North America as their land of opportunity. Far fewer German immigrants chose other destinations. But among these, Great Britain occupied a privileged position. Until the end of the 19th century, Germans formed the largest continental immigrant group in Britain. British publications that refer to immigration during the 19th century list several occupations that especially appealed to German immigrants. These occupations included sugar bakers who worked in refineries, waiters, bakers, hairdressers, tailors, brewers, and, mostly in London and northern England, pork butchers. Panicos Panay mentions them when he provocatively comes to the conclusion that the enduring legacy of German immigrants is confined to the introduction of pork sausages and lager beer. Robert Winder agrees with the assertion that many of the German immigrants, quote, set up as pork butchers. They gave Britain a new word, delicatessen, and supplied bacon and sausages in almost every sizable town. Humorously, he remarks that the great British breakfast would have been lost without them. These pork butchers will be the focus of my talk, predominantly because it seems that the majority came from the same small area in Germany, and secondly, because they left remarkable footsteps. Extending this background, I want to explain their origin, their products, their enterprise, and their acceptance. I have already pointed out that most of the data I obtain on these immigrants are kept in archives. That means they are to be found either in local community archives or in those of the church parishes. Here is an extract of such an archive entry. You can see that the first 3 children of the family shown died at an early age. This is the list of the children only. All the other 7 grew up, and by each name, except that of child number 6, the word Ingel. Here it is underneath, here as well, and here we can read it again. Ingel, as an abbreviation for England, is written in pencil. That means that 6 of the 7 siblings emigrated to England, and by the name of number 5, Christoph Friedrich, we can read Metzger in Sheffield, which means he was a butcher in Sheffield. I found many other archive entries of the same kind all over the area where I live. The area is called Hohenlohe. And as some initial results of my research, I noted.
Could you just tell us where that is roughly in Germany?
I shall you a map later. Sorry. Yes. Besides those who went to America, there were a significant number of people who left their villages in order to emigrate to Britain. It was noticeable that among these immigrants there were very many young women, and even more striking was the fact that males were predominantly described as pork butchers in the new country they had chosen. These substantial features led me soon to the guarded conclusion that most of the pork butchers described simply as of German descent in Britain were, in fact, from the small area of Hohenlohe, which measures no more than 30 miles in radius. And here you have got a map of the whole of Germany as it is today, and you see the arrow here points to a small area of Hohenlohe. My assumption was further enhanced when I read Sue Gibbons' book, German Pork Butchers in Britain. I think it is on show in the bookstore over there. That is published by the Anglo-German Family History Society. I noticed when reading the book that the majority of the family and village names